Hey, pushers, it's Mr. Narimatsu here, talking about, for today, the War of 1812. This guy called Henry Clay, senator, really important. And he's a guy, it's not even a president, but he's just all over the place. There's a lot of stuff. The Missouri Compromise and the Monroe Doctrine. So first, the War of 1812. Wikipedia has a really cool little picture here. And kind of goes through all the different little events. So I'm going to kind of talk about each one of these. The War of 1812, we actually declared war. And I'll talk about those issues and the reasons why in a second. Well, here, I'll talk about one. I'll talk about both of them. Two reasons. Number one, the British were arming Native Americans who were attacking us against our front, or like our frontier, which at this time would be the Ohio River Valley area. Also, there may have been some people that not only were concerned about that territory, but even wanted to go all the way up to Canada and get the territory in Canada. So you're going to have these people called war hawks that are just really, really supportive of declaring war. Another issue, so it's a territory issue, and then another issue is the fact that they continue to stop trading with us in Europe, or they're impressing our ships. So that whole Napoleonic warfare issue is still happening at this time. Actually, the War of 1812, it kind of ends. That is right when Napoleon kind of gives up and is defeated. And now the British can refocus kind of at the United States. So first one, this is a picture of the rebuilding of our Capitol building as it was burned down by the British, which did happen. Here, Andrew Jackson is leading his group against the British in New Orleans. He had a pretty decisive battle there. The battle went 2 weeks later than when the war actually ended. The war ended and they were fighting for 2 more weeks, and that's when he experienced a lot of his battle successes, was actually after the war. But nonetheless, he kind of comes out as a very popular figure for his military strategy in New Orleans. This is the battle with the Native Americans, I believe. This is just York Volunteers, so a militia in the Battle of Queenstown Heights, which would be in New York area. This is the death of Tukasime. Tukasime was kind of a Native American leader who led the Native Americans against the United States for United States' continual violation of treaties and continual encroachment on their territory. And then lastly, down over here, I guess it's kind of, I guess we did clockwise, but should went around like that way. This is a Navy battle, the USS Constitution versus Her Majesty's ship, which is what HMS stands for, so a British ship, Geary. I don't know if this place, yeah, so there's these huge fights are happening on the Great Lakes, and the Navy is successful there. So we have a couple battles in which we win. So go and talk about some kind of moments here. One cause I already talked about was the fact that we keep on sending our ships over here, and now they're getting what we call naval blockaded. They're stopping from coming in, getting provisions or being able to trade with continental Europe. It was one of the issues. I can't, let me go ahead and close, sorry. I know that you guys can't see it, but couldn't see all my controls because my face was there. But remember that during the French and Indian War, like we had these areas, but during French and Indian War, we got all this area, what they call the Ohio River Valley, which would be this area right here. And now we got the Louisiana Purchase, right over here. So as settlers were moving west, they're running into Native Americans like Tukasime and others that would be violent, and the British are actually arming the Native Americans to go against the United States, right? We're still not a friendly, we're not really friends at this time, right? The British and us had just recently fought the revolution, and the British probably would have come back to try to kick our butt again, but kind of got distracted with this whole Napoleon thing. So we're still not on good terms with the English, and these things are happening. And that's kind of another important point. You know, I didn't really actually talk about this, but what's going to happen in Hartford, Connecticut, right around here, there's going to be the Federalists are going to call in a convention, and they're going to talk about how Thomas Jefferson and all the Democratic Republicans and all the Southern slave states are fighting this war against Britain, who we had a great relationship with. And then the Democratic Republicans would say, what are you talking about? These are the guys that basically taxed us and killed us during the American Revolution. And this is this kind of hard problem that the Federalists have of being cool with the British, even though the British are attacking them or attacked them in the past during the American Revolution, right? But they kind of come together as Federalists and as Northerners saying this is really about land, the Embargo Act that you have created to go against the naval blockade and all these problems, Thomas Jefferson and now Monroe as a Democratic Republican, all it's doing is affecting our banking and our shipping. We're unemployed here. Like, you guys are running amok, causing all of these problems and declaring war, and we don't agree with this war. And it kind of makes them look, quite honestly, unpatriotic, right? I mean, there's a time where British troops are marching through New York, and basically New York does absolutely nothing, and they go and start attacking other troops, right? And so there's kind of a feeling from a lot of the Americans that these Federalists are not really for America. They're more pro-British than they are pro-American, and they kind of look a little bit backwards at this time. You know, as a Federalist, they'd say, no, we're pro-American. We're just what they're doing is they're waging war just for their regional interests. They want all this land so they can expand slavery and move things over here. We're cool being here and being bankers. Let's just chill out for a little bit. So you kind of get these two perspectives about like grabbing of land and supporting and all those other things. So as you guys know, Thomas Jefferson came from Virginia, and he kind of saw our land as a bunch of farmers. So more land, better. So kind of talks about the Ohio River Valley. Just wanted to summarize the Ohio River Valley and kind of a couple of causes of this fight that is happening right now. After this war, where we don't win, it's kind of seen historically as a draw, even though Jackson did a really good job in New Orleans. It's kind of seen as a draw. We come out of it and go, well, we didn't get our butt kicked that bad, right? It's kind of this feeling that we took on the big bad British Navy, the one that Napoleon even tried to take on and couldn't handle, and we kind of held our own. So it's kind of like, I think, this teenage moment, right? This growing up moment of the United States. And because of that, James Monroe, which is the president right here, his presidency is known as the era of good feelings, right? The Federalists are pretty much gone. There's basically only one party, the Democratic Republicans. Are consistently getting elected. The government's doing things. And this government declared war, and we didn't lose, but we didn't win. But hey, we held our own. And, out of the War of 1812 comes the Star-Spangled Banner, that was our national anthem that we sing before sporting events. This is a picture of multiple people celebrating the 4th of July, our independence. So the era of good feelings, some people would criticize, no, it wasn't that good for, other people. Again, one of the major losers of this war is the Native Americans, for sure. They get their butt kicked. They lose their support from the British. They've lost their support from the French, and they're kind of now going to be out on their own. But a positive outcome for the general United States is a feeling of what we call nationalism. And they're going to call it both economic and cultural nationalism. So cultural nationalism would be this pride of your country, right? The belief in flags and patriotism and in our holidays that make us uniquely American. So economic nationalism is when basically you start trying to, do stuff just for America. So you start pulling up taxes on British stuff and French stuff, so people always buy American things. So one of these things will be called the tariff of abominations, right? They're going to put these tariffs on, trying to help the United States economy grow by having Americans buy American things and not worry about French or British or other international things. But that, unfortunately, is just going to cause more economic damage, kind of similar to what happened with Thomas Jefferson and his Embargo Act that we spoke of in our last screencast. As mentioned, Andrew Jackson is going to be a person that's going to rise to prominence. He's going to become very famous, and from this, he's going to become president. Here, Andrew Jackson, I'm pretty sure this is a picture. I remember seeing this, that he actually did this, that Donald Trump replaced like a picture of one president with Andrew Jackson. And so Andrew Jackson is definitely seen as like, later we'll talk about him, but he's definitely seen a man of the people, right? Not a man of the educated or the elite, but the man of the common man, they're going to call it. They're going to call his presidency the era of the common man. One gentleman that shows up during this time is this guy called Henry Clay. I kind of talked about him earlier. And this guy is just, he is Mr. Compromiser. As you can see, he's part of what now is called the Whig Party. The Whigs are basically the Federalists, and you notice that they're using even a British name to describe themselves, which again, if you're if you called yourself, if you're having problems with the British country and their basically declaring war on you, and you have the War of 1812, and you're calling yourself the British Party. You can see why this is some massive issues. So the Federalists changed into the Whigs, but that still doesn't really stop people from knowing about their true sympathies. But one thing about Henry Clay is going to be known as the Great Compromiser. He's going to come up with the Missouri Compromise. He's going to come up with the also the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which is another compromise. So he's going to come up with these things. He's also during this time known for what's called the Great American System, and he thought his job was to help the country. And he's just a senator, right? So he's probably the president of this. The leader of the majority of the Senate, but he's just trying to get Congress to get together to start doing things. And he talks about internal improvements, especially roads and canals, and also talking about a taxing system in which to get our economics domestically start moving and start going. So one thing that you're going to learn is all American system, right? And this is his vision on how to get our country and get goods and people moving. Because if you haven't learned anything about economics, that's the most important thing. That's why this is such a huge issue, because people aren't going out to restaurants. People are staying inside, right? We're being in this kind of like locked down part of society, and certain parts of our economy are not going well because you can't go out there and enjoy those experiences, like a movie theater or those other things. So just as a heads up, the faster you get people moving, the faster you get things moving, the faster your economy gets going, then usually the more wealth gets generated. I have one more Google map. I don't know why. Let's go and look here down here. Oh, the Monroe Doctrine. You're going to have a map the whole time, so it's going to be pretty, repetitive of what you're going to hear in a second. But during this time, Europe finally restores all its monarchies. Napoleon has basically gone through here and has like created republics or half republics in which there's a king or queen, which usually is his like cousin or brother or sister in the case of Spain. But after Napoleon's defeat, all of these monarchies, these kings and queens, come back up, and they're going to try to bring things back to how it was before the French Revolution, right? With basically authoritarian rule and more mercantilism, right? And the goal of mercantilism is to get colonies all over the world. Well, the United States and the British both talk to each other and go, let's not have any more Europeans go over here. And, you'll hear the inside dealings, but basically President Monroe ignores Britain and does it on himself and says, hey, no Europeans, including you, the British, can come over here, even though we need the help of the British. But anyways, none of you guys can come over here. And democracy here is going to be for us to watch over, and, I think at first, like a lot of Latin Americans probably got excited saying that we'd rather have America, a democracy, help guide us in our democracies, rather than being taken over by these kings and queens again, and that's one thing, like, you learned about the founding fathers. It's like this democracy thing, they kind of look at it, it's only worked well in like small city states. It's only worked in Greece, which is like super small. It's only worked in the city of Rome, right? Even though the Roman Empire went further, right? So, and then the Roman Empire necessarily wasn't a democratic system. So, with that being said, there always are concerned about how this can spread so easily to other places and how local areas are going to have their own local issues to deal with in regards to democracy. But the idea was to keep these from being invaded by here, because we don't want probably anybody coming over here. And it's a bold statement. The United States doesn't really have a great Navy, doesn't have a good army. Sure, it got tested out in the War of 1812 and we held our own. But to say the whole half of the world is basically ours to protect for democracy, and we're going to make sure nobody comes over, it's a bold statement. It's a bold statement for a very, very young United States that is still developing its position in the world. So, all right, guys. So there's a little bit of a lecture. Help you guys out on those details. And again, we're into period 4 now, so you can see that the details of history just keep on getting more and more. And that's the way this class does. The first couple periods are really focused like that. And then we start getting these things that kind of just start layering on top of each other. You're going to see that in our next video next week and next topic when we talk about the market revolution, which is happening basically during the American Revolution. So we're going to have to like rewind the class theoretically a little bit. So hopefully you're following along. We'll see you guys at the Zoom sessions, and we'll see you at the next one. All right. Take care now. Bye.